Welcome to Knowledgeable Aging. I'm your host, Jason Kotar. Joining us today to talk about adopting a diet that adapts to aging is Jessica Sylvester. Jessica is a registered dietitian with advanced board certifications in critical care nutrition, diabetes management, and weight loss. She has a master's degree from one of the nation's leading nutrition institutes, Tufts University Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy. In her private practice, Florida Nutrition Group, Jessica provides both condition-specific nutrition care as well as preventative interventions for preserving health. In addition to providing direct patient care, Jessica's work in nutrition has included research, academia, and public policy. Her expertise in the field led to her selection as the media spokesperson for the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. How are you doing today, Jessica?
I'm good, thank you, Jason. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Jessica, I'd like to go into detail about the 4 physiological changes that happens as we age and why they are important. Can you tell me about body composition?
Yeah, I can. Like you said, there are 4 main physiological changes that happen as we age, and changes to body composition are one of those. And when we talk about changes to body composition, what we mean is loss of lean body mass and increased fat reserves. Lean body mass is everything that isn't fat. So it's organs, bones, body water, and muscle. And the word for muscle wasting is sarcopenia. Most people understand that muscle is responsible for movement and stability. Those muscles are I'll call them your beach body muscles, right? Your abs, your biceps, your quads. Those are important. When we lose those muscles, we lose movement, or our movement and stability worsens. But our organs are also composed of muscle. And a lot of people don't think about that when we discuss muscle loss. So our heart, our diaphragm, our GI system, our eye sockets, there are muscles supporting those organs. And these bodily systems worsen when we lose muscle mass. Also, lean body mass stores minerals and water. So the loss of lean body mass leads to nutrient deficiencies and dehydration. So for example, we spoke a lot about muscle as lean body mass, but remember, lean body mass is anything that's not fat. So bone is also included in lean body mass. Calcium is a mineral. Calcium is a mineral that's stored in bone. When we lose lean body mass and bone, we lose calcium, and that leads to falls and fractures. And calcium actually is involved in a lot of we call them electric potentials in our body. It's what makes our heart beat. It causes a lot of, there's a lot of cause and effect caused by calcium. And that's just one little mineral. So we lose minerals and water also when we lose lean body mass. Muscle stores water. When those water reserves become depleted, we see dehydration. Dehydration is a big deal in older adults, but I'm going to talk about it a little later. What I'm going to talk about now is the other part of body composition, or the other change to body composition, which is increased fat reserves. Fat is a metabolically active organ. And what I mean by that is it doesn't just sit there. It's producing hormones. Some of those hormones can produce inflammation and insulin resistance. And the more fat you have, the more of these hormones that can really cause damage to your body exist. So it's not, there's a lot of emphasis on fat and its relation to weight and appearance, but that's not what we're talking about when we discuss increased fat reserves as we age. It's actually a bigger deal than that.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about a decrease in taste and smell?
Yep, that's the second thing I wanted to talk about. So as we age, it's usually around age 55 for men and age 60 for women, we experience decreased sense of taste and smell. This actually is something that a lot of people experienced with COVID. So there's diseases can cause blunted senses of taste and smell. Medications can cause blunted senses of taste and smell, and just the aging process in general. But absolutely, certain medications will speed that up. Because medications will cause dry mouth. A lot of medications cause dry mouth, and dry mouth can affect your taste buds. It can be painful in your mouth. People want to eat less, so it becomes harder to taste because of these age-related changes that we see that lead to poor senses of taste. It also leads to decreased enjoyment of food, right? So we eat with our eyes first, and then we taste the food and we smell it at the same time. And that can lead to, if you can't taste or smell your food, then you're not really going to want to eat it. And by not eating and not getting enough nutrients, you can become nutrient deficient. And more than that, if you can't smell or taste your food, this is something that a lot of people don't think of, but you also won't be able to detect spoiled or overcooked food. If your food's overcooked, it's a lot of nutrients are leached out. If your food is spoiled, that can cause sickness and potential death. So those senses of smell and taste are really important, and we don't realize that they become blunted as we age, and that can be a bigger problem than we think.
Yeah. The third thing, Jessica, of the third physiological changes, what about the decrease in the ability to chew and swallow?
Right. So there are a lot of things that affect our oral health that can make chewing difficult. Changes to dentition, right? People have dentures, they have implants, they lose teeth, they have cavities. So changes to dentition can make the act of chewing difficult. Muscle weakness in the jaw can make chewing difficult, and dry mouth from different medications or just the aging process in general can make chewing difficult and swallowing difficult. So our oral health affects what we eat, and what we eat affects our oral health. This creates a snowball effect that can lead to poor diet quality and the associated consequences. I'll tell you a quick story about my nanny, my great aunt. Her claim to fame is that she just always said, I have all my teeth. I have all my teeth. And as I was growing up, when I was a little girl, I thought, okay, I have all my teeth too. But that's actually a really big deal as you age, because you can eat and you can get the nutrients that you need from your foods.
Right.
And then there's swallowing difficulties, like you said. So that's called dysphagia, swallowing difficulties. And it can affect both the pleasure associated with eating as well as the safety of eating. Just like not being able to smell spoiled food can affect the safety of eating, swallowing difficulties and dysphagia can affect the safety of eating. Some people, as they age, end up having to downgrade the texture of their food. And what that means is you and I don't know about you, I'm assuming, I can eat a carrot. If I have to downgrade the texture of the food because it becomes difficult to chew or swallow, that might mean boiling the carrot to make it softer. And if that doesn't work, that might mean pureeing the carrot or blending the carrot. And for a carrot, that's okay. For seafood gumbo, that's disgusting. It can make food really unappealing. The consistency of downgraded textured food can be very unappealing, and it becomes difficult to meet your nutrient needs if you're not enjoying the foods that you're given. And you can ask anyone who's ever been admitted to a hospital or anyone who's ever been on a pureed diet, they will confirm that, yeah, if I don't like the food that I'm getting, I'm not going to eat it. Then you have nutrient deficiencies.
Yeah. The fourth one, I know you already started to kind of talk a little bit about it, but thirst mechanisms.
Right. So there's There's thirst mechanisms and decreased appetite. And we already discussed the changes to taste and smell, chewing and swallowing. So I hope it's obvious why decreased appetite is one of the consequences of the physiological changes that occur as you age. But here's the thing, and I'll get to the thirst mechanisms. Decreased appetite does not always translate to decreased intake. I don't know if you've ever read, there's this really popular study where the researchers gave movie goers big boxes of popcorn, and they were really gross it was like days old, very stale popcorn. And they gave them either the extra large bin or the large bin. And it turns out that it didn't matter if they were hungry, it didn't matter if they were full or satiated, they still ate the popcorn, mindlessly ate the popcorn. So even that's just one of those keystone pieces of research that show that not being hungry doesn't necessarily mean not eating.
Yeah.
So the other thing with satiety cues as we age is that satiety cues become weaker in older adults than they are in younger adults. This means that as we age, we are more likely to overeat despite requiring fewer calories. This can obviously lead to weight gain, and now we know fat is metabolically active, so that's not a good thing in most cases. Thirst cues, so let's talk about thirst now. Thirst cues are also blunted in adults. They can't, in older adults, a lot of times they can't recognize when they need to drink or when they're thirsty. I have kids, they're constantly drinking water, constantly. By contrast, my grandmother, I never saw her take a sip of anything in my life. That's not unique to my grandmother. A lot of older adults lose their ability to tell when they're thirsty. And some of the reasons we already discussed: taste, smell, lean body mass, dry mouth. And we can have a whole discussion on hydration and aging because it is a very, very important topic. But what I'll say about it is this: without being adequately hydrated, your sodium levels increase. This is just one of many things that happen, right? So your sodium levels increase. When your sodium levels are up, that manifests as high blood pressure. And high blood pressure can lead to stroke or cardiac arrest. Those are two things that we don't want, ever. Also, rehydrating after you're dehydrated is a lot more difficult for an older adult than it is for a kid who just played in a soccer tournament. That's why it's really important to prevent dehydration to begin with, by making sure that older adults are drinking throughout the day. So I worked in a hospital for many years, and there were many times where we saw people, older adults, who would come to the hospital with altered mental status, and that was always a big hint that this person is dehydrated. So dehydration can manifest in older adults as altered mental status. Let's talk about my grandma again. She was admitted to the hospital once, and she ended up slapping my aunt across the face. She went like this. And she was a very with-it woman. She was kind, never hit anyone. She went like this to her daughter, my aunt. Come here. And my aunt thought, oh, my mom loves me so much, she wants to tell me something special, and she came really close, and my grandma went whack right across the face. She was dehydrated. She had altered mental status. It had nothing to do with family dynamics. It was just, she was dehydrated. And I'll say that your fluid needs change according to your health status and your age. So before you start drinking gallons and gallons of water and changing your approach to hydration, check with your doctor. In fact, before you start changing your diet at all, check with a dietitian and your doctor.
Yeah, I want a personal story. My father, so I live here close to my parents, and I'm over at their house. My dad's in his mid 80s, and he's always working outside. God love him, right? Even at 85, extremely active. And the
Awesome.
other day, he's like, because he's like, he had 2 glasses of water, 2 things of water with him. And I noticed when I got over there later in the day, they were still full. And he's like, yeah, I just working all day long and I just forgot to drink. And he's got diabetes too. And so I know you are an expert in the field of diabetes as well with what you do there at Florida Nutrition Group. But I mean, I'm very worried about the ability of him not drinking water, then coming home and potentially not putting the right food in his body, being diabetic. So can, I don't know even if that's a question or that's just a comment about what
Um,
I see.
it's it's a good it's both. It's a good comment because it validates what a lot of people are seeing with their parents
Right.
and with themselves if they're older adults. And it's a good question because how do we prevent that? How do we make sure dad gets enough to drink?
Right.
Just off the top of my head, what I would say to you is, does he have a watch? Does he have an Apple Watch or some other sort of watch where you can program a timer to go
Timer.
off every hour and
Yeah.
then say, when you hear the timer, you have to drink this much water. However, you'd have to figure out how much water he needs during the day, plus how much water he needs with exercise, and say break it up into small amounts throughout the day so that he stays hydrated. That's what I would say. Set a
Yeah.
timer.
Yeah, it's amazing what you learn when you live with your aging parents or live near your aging parents and you're there on a semi-regular basis. Just little things like, you know, the water, right? Or fall prevention. So yeah, thank you for that.
I
I want to
think,
go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say, I think talking about this topic is particularly important because as we grow up, we end up taking care of our parents,
Hmm.
right? If we're lucky enough, if they're lucky enough, we end up taking care of our parents. And I see a lot of people personally, friends, family members struggling with feeding their parents, getting their parents to eat, getting their parents to eat the right things, not eating. But if there's just this level of understanding that, hey, your parents are struggling with something right now that they didn't know was going to happen, and you definitely didn't know was going to happen. So
Hmm.
let's just be aware that there are physiological changes that occur. And if your mom doesn't want to clear her plate at dinner time, whereas 10 years ago she would have eaten her plate plus your plate, like that's okay. There are reasons why it's okay. There are ways that we can nourish her. There are nutrients that she might be missing, but it is important to at least be aware that these physiological changes are happening because it changes our approach to caring for this population.
Absolutely. So nutrition isn't a one size fits all. So what does it mean to modify our diet, or what ways should our diet change as we age?
So I guess it would depend on your health status and any of these physiological changes. Let's say you're in perfect health and you're just getting older. You, unless you're exercising at the same rate and in the same amount that you were when you were younger, you probably don't need as many calories as you did when you were younger. Your metabolism slows down. The way that your body breaks down, absorbs, and digests and uses nutrients changes and it slows down. So that would be the first thing in a healthy, perfectly healthy individual. But then you'd have to consider health status. Most older adults have some level of chronic health condition. Every chronic health condition, most, have a nutrition prescription that goes with it, either to prevent worsening of condition or try to reverse the condition. So if somebody has renal disease, I'm not going to tell them, give them a generalized, hey, you have to drink so much water throughout the day. That's the opposite of what you need to do for someone with renal disease or someone who has diabetes, right? As they get older, I mean, yeah, someone who has diabetes as they get older, if they're saying, well, my blood sugar is really out of whack, my first response to them would be, yes, that happens as you age. But now let's look at what you're eating and the timing of your meals and your snacks to figure out how we can modify according to your reality, which includes whatever health condition you have, which in this case, this example was diabetes.
Yeah. So can a healthy diet combined with exercise delay or control health associated issues with aging?
That's a great question. It depends. Healthy diet means different things for different people. As long as you are nourishing yourself physiologically, that means eating fruits, vegetables, fiber, whole grains, but also, not everyone agrees with this, I think there is room to nourish your soul, right? Like on Halloween, have a piece of candy. I think that's important for your soul. Or what, you know, at the 4th of July, have whatever people eat on the 4th of July. Popsicle, I guess, I don't know. So you can preserve your health by eating right, nourishing your body physiologically and emotionally. And you can preserve your health by exercising. The thing is, if you're not taking care of your nutrition, your exercise is going to suffer. And if you aren't exercising efficiently as an older adult due to poor nutrition, there are going to be a lot of health consequences like falls and fractures. So exercise, diet and exercise are so important. Does it delay systemically on a cellular level what happens to your body as you age? Or does it prevent it? No, nothing prevents that. Does it delay it? I can't say. Does it make the transition a little bit easier? I think so.
So what role do social or emotional or physical factors take into effect when it comes to food intake?
Okay, social. I don't want to mess this up. Let me grab a pen because I want to answer all those questions.
Social, emotional, or physical?
Okay. There are a lot of different reasons why people eat the foods they do and why they eat them when they do. So there are definitely social aspects of eating that are important as you age. It's important to see your friends. Your kids leave the house. You may or may not still be married. So there is this need to be social, and humans are social people. We need to be social, whether you're an introvert or not. Just for your emotional health, some level of socializing is important. And that absolutely affects what you eat. I mean, think about the holidays when all you're doing is socializing. You're seeing this family, then you're traveling to see that family, then you're traveling there, and then you're hosting. And that's when people gain the most weight because food is a very social activity for a lot of people. So to that, I would say being social can affect your intake. It doesn't have to affect your health though. Emotional eating, that's a big one. A lot of people, everyone deals with their emotions differently, whether it's them being sad or them being really happy and let's have a celebratory drink, or I'm so depressed, let's have a drink. Emotions absolutely can affect the way you eat. Not everyone uses food or drink as a coping mechanism, but
Yeah.
some people do. And that's kind of a dangerous route or rabbit hole to go down, because it can really have severe, like, deadly consequences. But again, if you want to celebrate, Jason's birthday is today, let's have a piece of
Oh,
cake
wow.
together.
Oh,
Let's do that. That's one way of using food in an emotional setting, in a celebratory setting. But as long as you're aware of those factors, you can control them, and you can decide how much you want to let those factors influence your diet and your intake. And the physical factors that affect how much we eat, I mean, let me see if I understand what you're saying. Do you mean like I exercise a lot, so I'm going to eat to
yep.
replete? Yeah. So then it's important to replete the nutrients that you use when you eat. It's also important not to use exercise, or not to use food as a reward for exercising, because then
Yep.
it either cancels out, or you're overeating and all that work you did. I mean, I guess it depends on what you're exercising for, but there is the potential to do harm by using food as a reward for physical activity.
Yeah. So if a caregiver wants to get more involved in the nutritional issues associated with an aging loved one, is there one thing or a couple of things that they must do to get started, Jessica?
It depends on where that aging loved one is. If they are at home, visit them, have meals with them, just to observe. Just be an anthropologist for a little bit. Watch how they eat, spend the weekend with them, and see what kind of eating behaviors they exhibit. That way you can address what needs to be addressed. It becomes really difficult in a skilled nursing facility, or like a memory home, because you're not there to encourage your parent to watch what's going on. And a lot of times I see the older adults in those facilities, although they're very well taken care of, they just don't want to eat. It's not their food. It's not their home. It's not their cooking. They're not happy. It's a difficult position to be in as the patient and as the facility's caregiver. So if you're someone who has a loved one in that position, my recommendation would also be visit, bring them some food.
Yeah. I want to take that just one step further, Jessica. So what if you are in a situation as a caregiver for a loved one, but they don't live near you? Like I said, my family lives 10 minutes away, but what do you maybe recommend if they're remote? You've got a family member living on a different coast. Is there some things that you can kind of be aware of when it comes to the nutrition with your loved ones?
It's become a lot easier to get things to people. And what I mean by that is, I live in Florida. I have a friend in New Jersey who something terrible happened in his family, and I was able to send him buckets of ice cream to him and his family within hours because of different food delivery services. So if you have someone on a different coast, you can be in communication, talk to them, socialize with them, visit, see if there are neighbors or friends who can visit, send food, send gift certificates to go out to eat at places. But just being in touch with those loved ones who are far from you makes their lives better. And if they're happy, they're probably more likely to want to nourish the rest of their body as well. But it is difficult. It is. And there are many, many ways, creative ways to address that.
Yeah. So Jessica, how can people find you?
They can go to my email, they can go to my website, which is www.floridanutritiongroup.com, and that's spelled FL Nutrition Group, like the abbreviation for Florida. So FLNutritiongroup.com. They can email me at flnutritiongroup@gmail.com, or they can call me at 561-591-3249.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Jessica. As far as Knowledgeable Aging, you can go to knowledgeableaging.com. You can go and see our upcoming and archive webinars. You also go to our YouTube page. Go to YouTube, type in Knowledgeable Aging. We encourage you to subscribe. We update that several times per month. If podcasts are your thing, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, etc. Till next time, I'm your host, Jason Kotar, and this is Knowledgeable Aging.